She would then embrace me from behind, and we would sleep in that position until morning. Sometimes at night, I would hear silent noises coming from the two other roommates behind our bed. Whenever I tried to look back and see what was going on, Linda, with her arms around my body, would assure me not to worry about them. She would always say that they were having a nice time, and I should go back to sleep. She told me she could make me feel good without any consequences. I was overjoyed as I opened the letter that had been mailed to our home address earlier that day. Of course, I knew what was in it, but holding and opening the letter felt like a dream come true for me. I and my best friend Eva were offered scholarships to further our secondary school education in the merited Queen's College, after our outstanding academic performance at the Earth Brains competition that was organized by the administrators of the merited Queen College. It was so tough as it was the battle of the brilliant girls. 3 hours after rocking our brains, myself, my best friend Eva, and 3 other girls were chosen as winners amongst over 300 girls that applied for the scholarship and attended the competition. Merited Queen College was one of the best female boarding schools seated on the outskirts of Lagos. The school prided itself on academic excellence and had the best set of facilities, amazing building structures, and spacious learning rooms that were fully equipped. The school was mainly afforded by the rich because of their overpriced school fees, and my hands trembled as I read aloud the content of the letter. Hard work really paid off, I thought, as I hurried to look for my parents to share the good news with them. My parents hugged me with tears of joy dripping out of their eyes. Preparation for resumption started, and I went shopping with my best friend Eva. Eva and I had been best friends since we were 2, our parents had been friends, and we automatically clicked. She had lost her father at the age of 9 years, and we had all cried for he was a kind man. Her mother had been struggling ever since to cater for Eva and her younger brother, Prince Will. My parents were not wealthy, they were civil servants being paid peanuts, but they assisted Eva and her mother in the little way they could. This was why the scholarship was a big deal for both our families. It was as though a heavy weight had been taken off our family's shoulders. Although we were low on cash, we tried to shop I-class because we were attending a school filled with rich kids. We didn't want to look awkward and unkempt in their midst. Fast forward to the night before the day of resumption, my parents prayed for me. They also gave me advice and words of encouragement. That night, I couldn't sleep. I was on cloud 9 and couldn't wait for dawn. It was an exciting adventure that I was anxious to experience. On the day of resumption, my parents asked me to carry my luggage to my father's old FVO car. We drove to Eva's house and picked Eva up, then we all drove to merited Queen's College. It was the first day of resumption, and the compound was filled with fleets of exotic and expensive-looking cars. Beautiful and well-dressed female students all alighted from various cars and walked toward their dormitories majestically, while their drivers carried their luggage for them. I immediately felt ashamed of being seen with my parents in this old FVO car. To add to the embarrassment, the engine of my dad's car refused to turn off. It started making funny noises, then our car started jerking and releasing a loud smoke into the atmosphere, causing everyone in the school compound to turn in our direction, curious to see the unfortunate occupants of the car. Eva smiled brightly, while I bowed my head in shame, wishing the ground would open up and swallow me. I heard some girls giggling, while some others rolled their eyes. At that instant, I hated everyone and everything. We were directed to the admission office for registration and documentation. The principal briefed us on the routine, in a boarding school, and every other important activity we ought to know. After an hour in the office, we were done with the registration process, and it was time to say goodbye. Eva hugged my parents, while I just waved and murmured goodbye from a corner with an unsmiley face. I had not forgiven my parents for the public humiliation their car gave me. Where were they when their mates were hustling and making money, I thought. As Eva and I dragged our luggage to the dormitory, Eva and I were bunkmates. We arranged our clothes in our designated wardrobes amid stares from other girls in the room. Some were talking in harsh tones, but we didn't give them any attention. We were in SS1, after all, so no one could order us around, I thought to myself. But I was very wrong, for during lunchtime in the dining hall, while Eva and I were eating our food quietly, a big woman came to stand in front of us and ordered us to clear our dishes. At first, I thought she was one of the staff, but the school uniform she was putting on gave her identity away. She was a student like me. Eva and I looked at each other in surprise, smiled, then kept on eating our food. In anger, she banged her feet on our table, startling us to our bones. Eva jumped up and ran to clear the big bully's table, while I kept on eating my food nonchalantly. Deep down, I became angry with Eva for chickening out in fear. The big bully stared at me angrily, and I stared right back at her. Our eyes locked, eyeball to eyeball, as if waiting for the first person to blink or look away. She blinked first, of course, which made her angrier, and she made a sign of revenge and marched out of the dining hall. Eva made her way back after clearing the bully's table, and I looked at her and shook my head in disappointment. The big bully must have thought that we were in junior class, that was why she picked on us, I told Eva. But the junior students wore a different uniform, while we were clearly putting on skirts, Eva said back to me. I rolled my eyes, got up, and walked away from her. I met a big bully in the hallway, and she immediately pounced on me, threatening to end my life if I ever reported her to the school authority. She promised to make the school a living hell for me, and she kept to her word. She made me fetch her water, do her laundry, massage her ugly and dirty feet, and all sorts of other things. I saw her as a label. She even made me miss class twice because she locked me in a dark cupboard for hours with no ventilation. I tried explaining to my teachers and principal the reason I was absent in class, but they didn't believe me because I was a new student and had no reputation. The principal warned me that if I missed class for any reason again, I would be suspended. I became depressed. I went to my dormitory and cried while Eva comforted me. My other bunkmate, whom I had become familiar with, also comforted me. One of them told us of how she had been bullied when she was a junior student, and how the bully had gotten away with her atrocities, but thankfully the bully graduated the previous year. Hearing her story made me cry hard. It had just been 2 weeks in merited Queen's College, and I was fed up. I got up from the bed slowly and sadly as my roommates kept sharing their bully experiences with each other. I prayed as I walked towards the bathroom, praying not to meet the bully on the way because I had just finished washing her disgusting underwear that she had stacked up for a week inside her bedroom. I entered the bathroom and washed my face. My face was red from too much crying. I tried to force a smile, but it only resulted in another emotional breakdown. I sobbed aloud. Someone flushed the toilet from inside one of the toilets behind me, and I quickly dabbed my tears away, but it was too late. A very beautiful damsel walked out of the toilet and approached me. She smiled and extended her hand for a handshake. She introduced herself as Linda, and told me not to cry anymore. She also told me she was in SS3, the same class as the bully. She had seen me being punished severely by the bully and promised to help me get rid of the bully, only if I made a promise to her. I asked her how she was going to get rid of the bully, and she told me that I should give her 3 hours, and the bully would be rusticated and even arrested, on one condition. She wanted me to be a friend. She promised to give me lots of cash and make sure no one bullied me anymore in the school if I accepted to be a friend. I was overjoyed. I saw it as a win-win for myself. I got to be a friend of this gorgeous and popular queen. I got to be free from a bully, and I got to be given lots of cash. I smiled and accepted to be a friend. We shook hands, and just as she was about to leave the bathroom, she pecked me on the cheek, smiled, and walked away majestically. I was observing my classmates a few hours later when the bell rang. It was a Saturday, and I was pissed off that my sleep had been disrupted. It was obviously an emergency bell, and all the students gathered in the assembly as we anticipated the cause of the emergency bell. Just then, the principal walked in and began to address us against bullying, and how bullying was not accepted in the school. Before I blinked, the big bully was ushered onto the stage behind me with 2 policemen. A video record was played on the screen, which showed the big bully stuffing me into a wardrobe. I was shocked. Phones were not allowed, so I wondered who had recorded the clip. In silence, I prayed for the person for vindicating me. The principal further announced to us that Francis, that was the big bully's name, had been expelled and would be taken to the station for further questioning. There was wild jubilation and cheers among the students. It was obvious I wasn't the only one being bullied by Francis. Although I didn't jump around like the others, inside me, I was filled with awe and bliss. My mind thought of Linda's assurance to get rid of the big bully, and out of curiosity, I scanned the crowd for Linda. Then I saw her in one of the corners, smiling at me. It was obvious she had been looking at me all the while. I blushed and smiled back at her, feeling a tingling in my chest. Weeks turned to months, and Linda did her best to make my stay at merited Queen's College the best. I felt like a queen indeed. She even told me to move into her room and occupy the bed that the big bully vacated. I told her I was scared of sleeping in a room I wasn't assigned to. She told me not to worry, and we got it sorted out. True to her word, I was officially moved into her room. I was really happy because we were just 4 occupants in the room, unlike my previous room, where we were 10 girls cramped in a small space. Linda officially became my school mother. I didn't lack anything, and I became respected among the students because Linda was the most famous girl in the school, and I happened to be her daughter. Even in the dining hall, we were given the presidential table. Eva and I drifted apart gradually. We still talked once in a while, but we stayed in our lanes and I didn't care. She was, after all, a poor, broke daughter of a widow with funny body odor, and I was way past her level. Every night, Linda would beg me to sleep on her bed with an excuse that she was scared. She would then embrace me from behind, and we would sleep in that position until morning. Sometimes at night, I would hear silent noises coming from the 2 other roommates behind our bed. Whenever I tried to look back and see what was going on, Linda, with her arms around my body, would assure me not to worry about them. She would always say that they were having a nice time, and I should go back to sleep. I was curious to know what they were doing. From the sound they made, they seemed to be having a nice time, truly, and I wanted to know what they were doing and probably have a nice time with them too. After all, I was now their friend. We ate at the same table and did almost everything together. I was really naive about sexual activities, and out of curiosity, I asked Linda what was going on between the 2 girls and she smiled. We were standing by my locker when the conversation ensued. Before I knew it, she kissed me on the lips and smiled again. Our lips were very soft and moist. This was definitely my first kiss. She asked if I had ever been with a man. My eyes grew in shock. I was only 14 years old and morally brought up well by my over-religious parents. I told her I had never been with a man. She felt relieved. She told me a man had forced himself on her when she was 13 years old, and it had been a painful, horrible experience that she never wanted to have again. She told me she could make me feel good without any consequences. I wanted to know what she was talking about. She smiled and led me by the hand into the room. We met the 2 other roommates. Just then, Linda told me to sit on her bed. Then she whispered into the 2 girls' ears. They laughed and got up, while Linda came to sit beside me and held my hand, and we watched the 2 other girls take off their clothes. The 2 girls immediately got intimate with each other. I felt irritated and disgusted at first, but Linda softened her grip on my hand and caressed my hand to calm me down. My nerves calmed, and I started enjoying the show. One of the girls took out a candle from the drawer and used it on her partner. They seemed to be having a nice time, and I watched with keen interest, as if to try out something new. One of the girls brought out a lighter from her bag, and lit the thread on the candle that was inside the other girl. They were smiling and enjoying themselves until the fire caught the bed they were lying on. They both started panicking, and in an attempt to put out the fire and take out the candle, half part of the candle broke into the girl's private area. They both started panicking more. The one whose private area had the candle started crying and jumping around as she tried to shake out the candle, but her effort was in vain. I watched as the 2 girls went from having a good time to freaking out. Their screams must have gotten to the ears of students and staff because footsteps were heard running towards our room. Linda whispered to me to quickly run to my bed and act like I was asleep, and she quickly lay on her bed, pretending to be asleep. The door was kicked open just as I landed on my bed, and I quickly shut my eyes. The housekeeper and the principal barged in, and saw the two trembling and scared girls. The house mistress shouted at them to know what had happened, and in tears, they told the principal that a candle was stuck in the private part of one of them. The principal didn't need to be told what they were both doing. The principal and house mistress looked in our direction, and saw both Linda and me in our pretend sleep. In hushed tones, she ushered the two guests out of the room in anger. Both were suspended from the school, and were to be persecuted for the acts. Do you think the narrator would go ahead to join her school mother Linda in this newfound adventure? Find out in part 2 of this series coming up soon.